We recommend that every successful entrepreneur and investor have a second passport, have some money that's legally kept overseas, have an asset protection plan, have a personal protection plan. And I've been studying and now implementing this stuff for well over a dozen years now. And I've done all that, and then I've done it again, and in some cases again and again. So why do I keep going out and getting new residence permits, seeking new passports, and opening new bank accounts? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly why I keep doing this right now. I am Andrew Henderson, and here at Nomad Capitalist, we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where they're treated best with all the strategies that we've talked about here, from bank accounts to second passports to living overseas. We teach people and we help people do it legally. And I'm going to tell you why I keep doing this, because there's a difference between having one layer of protection and having multiple layers of protection. In many cases, I've gone beyond multiple layers of protection. And so for me, the number one reason that I keep doing this stuff is I'm simply curious and I'm simply fascinated by the process. As now a second world citizen, I occasionally have to go to an embassy and ask for a visa. It's generally a relatively easy process. But I remember one time I went and they said, hey, show us all the passports you have. And they were asking, why do you have this one? Why do you have that one? And I answered honestly, I said, I just like this. It's intriguing to me. And I believe that the diversification piece, having options, not being owned entirely by one country, not being locked in with your money and your freedom and your business and everything, I think that's important. But at a certain point for me, I've made the decision as the leader here at Nomad Capitalist to become endlessly curious and go out and seek more options. Now, we've talked about second passports I wouldn't take even if they were for free. But we've also talked about why I don't discuss my citizenships because, who knows what could happen in the future. I certainly don't have any two citizenships where the countries are at war with each other. I wouldn't do that. It wouldn't feel right. It wouldn't be right. I don't want to get into trouble. But nobody knows what the future will hold. And so what I've tried to do is create for myself an endlessly expanding yet carefully curated plan for expansion, partially because I'm curious, and partially because by doing more, it helps me connect with what it is that you are trying to do, both the audience members and the people that we work with directly. This has always been what I thought is missing from this business, where you have service providers and attorneys and accountants who have their own little angle at why you should get a certain passport or why you should have a certain tax reduction plan, but they haven't done it themselves, and therefore what do they miss? They miss the operational side of things. I know tax guys who have brilliant tax structures that check all the boxes for the IRS or HMRC or whomever, but they're not really that easy to use, or they don't make their clients feel comfortable because the clients feel weird with where their money is kept, or whatever the case may be. And those professionals don't really understand that. I want to stay in the game of understanding, why it is that you're doing this stuff. And so a lot of times, some of these programs seem good in theory. I'll go out and try something. One example that we've talked about once or twice is Dominican Republic. In theory, it seems easy to go down there, get a residence permit, get a citizenship. The process is really not that easy. I have not done Uruguay myself, but I have other people who have. And I've said for years now that Uruguay, great place. And they've expanded their tax benefits now, not as easy as they would make it seem. And I think that's true of a lot of countries where judges make decisions on citizenship. Argentina has kind of a similar practice. Doesn't mean you can't get citizenship there. Doesn't mean you can't get residence there. But it means that if you're coming from a different place in the world, you may not understand that. And so if you're coming from a common law jurisdiction, you may not understand how civil law jurisdictions are going to work, and you may make a decision based on what you know, having not experienced it. And so I'm constantly trying to immerse myself in new experiences, learn the practice, learn how it works. There's one citizenship program recently where you're supposed to buy all the, you're supposed to make all the investments at once. And we actually found a way, kind of a legal loophole, where you can make the investments over time. And if you go into it knowing that you're going to do that, and you set yourself up in the beginning, you can actually buy numerous things over the course of time rather than having them buy them all at once. That's a nice benefit that most of the guys who just sell citizenships and their goal is just to get the biggest commission, selling you real estate, selling you a donation, whatever, they're not going to tell you about. And so for me, I have a diversification plan. I have multiple citizenships. I think we've seen in the year 2020, when I look all around me at all the expats that I'm surrounded by who have one passport and they're stuck and they've got to go to a place where maybe they don't have a home. They have to leave certain countries because they don't have residence permits. I don't have that. I live in places where I have homes, I have residence permits, I have citizenships in other places. I've been fully diversified and I have assets in all these places. So I have the ability to use each of these tools to my advantage. But I could take that and I could just sit and rest on my laurels. But I like to get into, let's be honest, kind of the misery of some of these programs. If I just stopped doing anything new and said, hey, I'm already covered, number one, most of what I have I could keep. Certainly, I'm not going to lose any of my citizenships. A residence permit might expire eventually, and you may not be able to renew it, or you might not want to renew it. Maybe a bank would close your account, or you'd be sick of a bank, you'd want to close your account, whatever. Maybe you'd want to move your company. Some people right now are concerned about what's happening in Hong Kong. They're moving their companies elsewhere, or they're concerned about some of the tax havens that are increasingly hard to work with. So you'd have to make some changes. But by and large, I would be covered, and someone at my level would be covered. But I like to experience the misery of going through new programs, because that is what connects me with what you guys are, going through. And I think that for anyone who wants to be a mentor, you can't be 20 steps ahead of the mentee, right? I'm an entrepreneur. We do relatively well, but it's possible if I went to, be mentored by Bill Gates or someone who ran a big publicly traded company, that might be too much. Certainly there'd be things you could pull out of that, and obviously if you go on social media now, everyone's quoting Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and everybody else, and they have some great, more trite knowledge. But if you really get into the nitty-gritty, someone who runs publicly traded multi-billion-dollar international company may not be the best person to mentor me. I know people who they have $100 million because they sold a business, and I talk to them, and they are me 10 years later, and that's the best mentor. And so I think that kind of for me, sitting in the misery of going through this, filling out the forms, learning each of the processes for myself makes it easier to communicate, easier to understand, and easier to share with you guys, and also easier to connect with how it is that you feel when you're going through this. I just added Mrs. H to one of my citizenship by investment programs. I added my wife. And once again, big stack of paperwork came through, and I once again, had the eye roll. Fortunately, I have a team, and we have a team here at Nomad Capitalist that handles a lot of that stuff for people. But it was this big stack, and it's like your heart starts racing faster because you think of how unpleasant it was the last time you had to gather all these different documents. And I think getting too detached from that as a mentor is a bad idea. I think that that would start to put me in the camp of the lawyers who they don't have a second passport, but they think you should. And it's so easy to say, well, just do this. And I think that I'm constantly looking for new things to do, and not so that you copy me. People sometimes come to me and say, oh, you expatriated, maybe I should do that. Well, you should if you want to, whether it's for my reasons or for your own reasons. And certainly I can walk you through that, and certainly know what it feels like, and I know the emotions you're going to go through, and I know the steps, and I know exactly what you can do, and I know that what's theory and what's in reality. But I remember at our very first conference back in 2014, we had Peter Schiff come and keynote the conference, and we had a number of speakers from the offshore industry back before we were really the size that we are now. And there was a guy who had a little bit of cachet in the industry, and I remember he told me, kind of in a snarky way when I was there, he said, you're on the right track, but you're too emotional. I've always liked to listen to people who are more successful. I think it's a trait of people who succeed. But that didn't really resonate with me. And what I thought? I thought of it more over the years, and I realized this is entirely emotional. You want a second passport because you want to feel safe, and you want to know that no one country can control you. You want to have a tax reduction plan because, like many people I work with, you're paying 40 or 45 or 50 cents on the dollar, and you don't feel, you feel unproductive. You feel like, I don't want to make any more. What's the point? You feel not as motivated as you could. You feel like you're being taken advantage of. And so therefore you want to go where you feel better and you feel unconstrained. You feel like you can unleash your creative potential and make more money and not have to hand over half of it and be dissed in the process. This stuff is largely, and in fact perhaps entirely, emotion. And I think staying connected to that from my perspective is very important. Now, as a person, I enjoy the process of collecting different things. It makes me feel comfortable. It gives me a sense of security. Quite frankly, as someone, and this may not be identifiable to everyone, but as someone who didn't entirely like where he grew up, even as a child, there's a bit of a seeking for an identity. And so when I meet people at parties, sometimes they'll say, where are you from? I've tested different answers over the time. I don't really like to just make something up. I've done that occasionally, but it feels very uncomfortable for me to say something and then to stick with some story that's not true. But, being able to say, oh, I'm St. Lucian, or oh, I'm this, or oh, here's what I'm doing here, in a truthful way is very interesting. And so I think there's a personal angle to just wanting to have more tools in the tool chest, wanting to have more flags, wanting to have more access. And for me, that's very comfortable. But it's also a great tool to help you guys. And there's new programs that I'm going through right now. There are sometimes I will go through a residence program and I won't worry about collecting the passport. Maybe I don't want the passport. But I will go through the residence program and I'll see how it works and I'll make the investment and I will understand how it goes. And I think that's what sets us apart here at Nomad Capitalist, is that what everyone else is selling, I'm doing. And so therefore, I don't want to buy real estate in Cyprus with a 22% commission to become a citizen. I would not waste $500,000 plus now they have a donation to become Cypriot. It's just not worth it for me. Now, the guy in Cyprus who's a lawyer who a bunch of years ago decided, hey, we're selling citizenship, let me get on that business. Sounds like an easy way to make $500,000 per client. Yeah, of course he's interested in you doing it. Of course, he's not going to send you to Malta. He's not going to send you to St. Lucia. He's not going to send you to Peru. He's not going to send you to Malaysia. He's going to, focus on, selling you without understanding, why are you coming to Cyprus, right? If you're from India or Pakistan or Russia or someplace with not a very good passport, he's got a good passport. He probably doesn't understand. And so I'm putting myself through these different situations, not only because it serves me personally. Certainly there's an element of that, but it's very interesting to come and tell you how it works and in a much more substantial way talk to the limited number of people that we work with about how it works. And so that is why I keep doing stuff. The only constant in this business is change. And so something that works today may not work tomorrow. That is certainly a hazard. But really, understanding on a personal level, I think, is extremely important. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.